Hi, I'm John.
And I'm Ripley.
And this is Comicsplaining,
the show where we unleash our spider disco.
No, not Spider Disco, especially not years after disco is dead.
Do 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 do.
No, but
it's not even disco, man.
And disco was
disco-y.
dead by the time this cartoon came out.
I mean, it was in its death throes, but it wasn't really quite dead yet.
Death throes for disco might as well be dead.
This is a queer show. Disco never died.
That's true. There are still plenty of discotheques around the world.
And, disco still is alive and well within queer music. There's still a root there.
I'm too oblivious to music to know.
That's fine.
I'm over here with my video game soundtracks. What do I know about music, queer or otherwise?
I know this. Anyway, we've been watching the latest old cartoon we found to watch, which is from actually the same...
It's a really weird choice to do two Spider-Man cartoons that reuse some of the assets and designs.
music in particular.
Yes. But they aren't connected?
Nope. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and Spider-Man both came out in 1981. Not connected.
But they use the same music for the most part.
Same art assets.
They even do the same weird glowy eye thing for his Spidey sense.
You know, the traditional glowy eye thing.
Yes, definitely not the half mask thing.
Or the radiating lines thing.
Yeah, like two things that are actually normal, regular things they've been doing for 50 years now? Wow.
Anyway, Candace isn't actively here with us this week. We're actually going to remember to say that this time.
Candace is here in spirit.
You might actually hear a chortle if we're actually particularly funny, because Candace is behind us.
Stop telling people I'm dead.
You can sometimes hear her voice.
I can still hear her voice on the wind. What happened last time?
Let's see, what happened last time? Okay, I mean, other than the Magneto is Wanda and Pietro's dad, that was a whole issue, but that's the important bit. I mean, Vision needed a new arm, but don't worry about that. We don't care about what Vision needs.
They were fighting around the baby.
Yeah, but then the baby started crying, and that stopped Magneto. But that's not important. I mean, the important thing is Magneto found out he was Vision's.
It's Vision's dad.
That's cursed. That he was Wanda and Pietro's dad. And then he came to, well, not collect, but to do family things.
Have a family reunion.
Yeah.
Impromptu family reunion.
I'm not sure he knew what he wanted out of it. Until he got there, to be perfectly honest.
He said he was looking for his past when he went to talk to, what's-her-fuck, the cow lady.
Well, I don't think he knew... Well, when he learned they were alive, and that he knew them, and that they were his henchmen...
It's gonna be bugging me that I can't remember her name.
Bova.
Bova!
I don't think he knew what he wanted out of it. Like, he needed to see them, but beyond that... The man who seems to always have, some kind of plan going... He didn't seem like he had a plan.
Yeah, I think the plan was mostly, hope I can figure this out.
I mean, think about what he said. He said, and so the children died, of course. And then Bova says, no, they lived, as I said. And then he freaks the fuck out, flies to the moon, puts a barrier around a building, apparently beats the ever-living shit out of Vision. And I say apparently because the part where he does that happens off-panel. And then he makes peace with his kids and gets to hold his granddaughter.
Yep, so that's what happened in Vision and the Scarlet Witch. We had a couple of other stories.
Okay, so Dracula... yeah.
So Dracula.
Okay, so there's this Van Helsing lady.
Yes.
And she thought Dracula was dead. Wrong. Dracula lives. and turned her into a vampire.
I hate it when that happens.
And then summoned Ororo to get a book that could kill him. And then Dracula's daughter possessed Kitty, and after a series of shenanigans, stole the book, but then the Van Helsing lady killed Dracula. Well, ish. She kind of killed him. Turned him into bones.
Couldn't finish the job because shenanigans again.
Building fell down.
Yeah, building fell on him.
Yeah, so he's fine. He's Dracula. He's fine. Kitty was possessed by Dracula's daughter, Lilith. It was a whole thing. I think this is just part of Ororo's weird Dracula shenanigans.
Yeah. Luckily, we don't hear much from Dracula for quite a while.
Oh, thank God. I'm getting fed up with these weird stories of Dracula.
Now, Dracula will return in Avengers Infinity War, but that won't be for a bit.
Look, I'm not shocked. I've met alternate universe Ororo, who's a vampire.
That's a whole different thing.
I'm sure, but that sounds related.
Anyway, so that was one.
And
we
then,
got one left.
And then Kitty thinks Xavier is a jerk.
Well, she's not wrong about that.
Mr. Child Soldiers over here is kind of a jerk.
Just not for why Kitty thinks he's a jerk.
Yeah, no, because she wants to be one of the child soldiers. See, she's being bumped to the B team, and she doesn't like that. She wants to be on the A team, which is the more soldiery of the two teams.
Yeah, the B team is supposed to be not soldiering. They're supposed to be sitting in class. They're just not always so good at that.
Yeah, they're actually very good at getting into trouble, even though they're not supposed to be getting into trouble, that is. But she eventually, through shenanigans, convinces Chuck to relent. Those shenanigans involving that little alien dragon guy, God, I cannot remember what they're called.
Sidrian Hunters.
Yeah, Sidrian Hunters that were still on the base. And a lot of buttering up and arguing and fighting and all kinds of stuff with Chuck.
Also, Wolverine went to Canada.
For reasons.
Also, Nightcrawler.
Oh yeah, and the most important thing, we saw not Jean Grey.
Madeline Pryor.
A bell tolls for Scott, because Madeline Pryor has arrived on the board.
He actually met up with Lee Forrester first, but man oh man, is she gonna get tossed to the curb like fucking...
Well, I'm shocked. Lee Forrester is going to be forgotten in the dustbin of history.
Yeah, that's all about what happened. Next up is New Mutants 4 from February of 1983, written by Chris Claremont, penciled by Sal Buscema, inked by Bob McLeod, colored by Glynis Wein, lettered by Tom Wojciechowski, with a cover by Bob McLeod. A quick warning for this issue for child abuse. If you don't think you're able to read about something like that right now, then I encourage you to skip to the next part of the episode listed in the timestamps down below. Thank you. It's dark in the room when Stevie Hunter receives an ominous phone call threatening that the caller's going to come and get what they want.
Ugh.
Before hanging up.
You know, this could just be a random asshole, but that's still horrifying.
It could be any given creep. Who fucking knows? It's not even the first of such calls. She's even hit up the police before, but per the usual, they can't do anything about harassment.
Like they care.
Maybe if she was jaywalking, they could do something. She furiously and fruitlessly threatens the dial tone loud enough for Sean to hear.
Look, she could be convicted of driving while black, but there's no way they're gonna stop someone harassing her.
That's exactly what I'm saying. If she was jaywalking, I'm sure they could find the time for it.
Yeah.
She too knows about the phone calls, and she wants to help. But Hunter just wants the kids to stay out of it.
Well, yeah, everyone is on board with the idea that y'all aren't child soldiers, guys. You're students. You're not supposed to be solving adult problems.
As she walks Sean out to head home, the women greet another of Stevie's students, Peter Bristow, and then it's on with the day. The New Mutants are playing Frisbee. Well, after Danny tosses the thing, it's mostly Rain playing Frisbee.
So I have to wonder, is this because Rain is kind of a dog sometimes?
I think so, yes.
This feels, I would almost say mean, except Rain seems to be enjoying it.
Exactly. Danny flings it and Rain jumps high above the snow, shifting into her transitional state to catch the Frisbee, flinging it back towards Berto. But she's fast enough that she dashes after her own toss, following them puppy instincts.
Ooh.
She catches the Frisbee once more, but also collides with the Costa.
Rip.
Whoops. The rest of the New Mutants are pretty entertained by this. But if they think Berto's fall is so funny, let's see any of them do any better.
Well, it looks like somebody can do better.
But Berto flings the Frisbee with wild abandon, and Sam streaks off after it, blasting until he catches the Frisbee, and then promptly into a tree.
That's... we're gonna call that better because it's more destructive.
Better because he actually touched it.
But also because he broke a tree.
Mere moments later, the mutants get a mental call from Xavier, leaving Sam to think he's in trouble for that tree.
Well, he looks really mad.
And Danny just on edge, giving her rough start with Xavier.
Oh, right. She doesn't trust him, which is fair, actually.
When they first come inside, the kids are met not by Charles, but Lalandra, who cheerily notes that there'll be cider and sandwiches after they finished.
Oh, right. Have we seen her in this series yet?
I don't recall if we have.
I don't think so.
You know what? They wouldn't have. It makes sense that they wouldn't have, because she came back with the X-Men. So this would be the first time they've really met her.
And they're all reacting to the person they've heard of.
Right.
A friggin' space empress.
Exactly. Rain is shocked that an empress like Lil would serve them like this, but Danielle is defiant, stating that they rank it. The statement doesn't ruffle the Majestrix's feathers at all. Instead, it makes her see herself in Moonstar's rebellious spirit. But then the kids proceed into Xavier's study.
Who looks like he has very bad news to tell them. Okay, X, who died?
Sean is missing from their number, but not for long. She rushes in mere moments later, jacket still on from her trip in from Salem Center. He's gathered them here in his office today to explain how he was possessed by the Brood. But nonetheless, he still thinks, if they want to stay, that teaching them how to use their powers is the right move. Danny's the first one to speak on all their behalfs, accepting the professor's offer. Glad though he may be, Charles's thoughts are drawn by the turmoil bubbling on the surface of Sean's mind. When he presses, she explains what's been going on with Stevie and how no one seems to be able to help her, up to and including the phone company.
Like Ma Bell can help anybody. They made their money, they don't need to do anything.
She intends to help, and as soon as she mentions it, Danny defiantly whispers that she's on board. But really, they're all here for Stevie. Chuck agrees then, requesting a plan from the kids, which rubs Danny wrong, worried that Stevie's life is in danger. But girl, that's the point of a plan.
Yes, plans are to make things better, not just make them worse.
Just charge in there. I'm sure that'll sort everything out, right?
Yeah. It's not like someone might be having a plan to torture Stevie to reach...
So charge in with her knife and cut the phone lines, and then it'll be all solved.
Problem
I was about
solved.
to say, charge in where?
Wherever the phone goes. Just follow the line. That's clearly how this works. And when she reaches the exchange, just cut all of it.
Of course, Xavier sees through the pointless butting of heads, trying to emphasize that they aren't enemies for as much good as saying it does.
I'm sorry, but you're still an evil brood man as far as at least one of the New Mutants is concerned.
When the kids file out for their cider and Sammy's, Lalandra slips into Chuck's study with a few mugs for them. Fact is, she picked up on the bad vibes when the kids left, and she wants to know what's up. That's what Chuck would like to know, too. Well, Lil thinks she has some insights. Moonstar is scared of everything going on, so she's lashing out. What Lilandra wants to know is what comes next. Charles confesses that once upon a time he would have forced her in line, but fathers just don't know best anymore.
Wow.
Back in the Stan days, man.
Yeah, are we actually acknowledging that not just, Chuck, but Stan may have made some mistakes about how...
I feel like the entire approach to New Mutants is kind of a commentary on the early X-Men comics, don't you?
You know, I hadn't thought of it like that, but I don't think you're wrong.
I mean, not only is there the fact that we now no longer have a complete sausage fest,
No, we
which to me
don't.
feels like kind of a commentary of its own.
Yeah, it's a sausage fest, except for the one girl who everyone is into.
Right. But we also have a diverse team.
Mm-hmm.
We also have admission that Charles Xavier might be onto some child soldier shit and he's trying to do a little better about it at the very least.
But even beyond that, he is a flawed human being and he does not know best.
Right. So, I don't know. I think you can make a case that there's at the very least some commentary on the early X-Men issues.
I think that's fair. Just wish whoever drew that kiss knew how to draw a kiss.
Kids are more rebellious these days. But anyway, he wants the kids to respect him, not fear him. And he knows that has to be earned. That's a good answer, and a moment later, Chaz has earned himself a kiss. For as much as John likes that kiss.
I'm sorry, but that's not how faces work together. Where's Chuck's nose? It's in her cheek. His nose is in her cheek.
The plan is something the cops could have easily cooked up had they cared to. They hook up a phone trace to Stevie's phone, and then they wait. 1 call, 2 calls, 3 calls, all from perfectly innocent callers. But number 4 is a winner.
Man, Star 69 would have destroyed this guy.
The gadget works, and they do indeed get the address and phone number of the caller. Quickly, the kids rush off to the phone booth they traced the number to, only to find it empty. That doesn't mean they're done, for Rain breaks out her sniffer and, after gagging, is fast on a trail. Get it, 'cause of the phone booth? The boy responsible is around their age, and after following Wolfsbane's nose, it leads them to the Central High Gymnasium. They find it all lit up for a school dance, so isn't it a good thing they picked up an invite a while back from those kids at the mall?
Oh my god, they did, didn't they?
They did.
That's a coincidence.
Chris is pretty good at leaving those strings hanging that he can just kind of pull on whenever he wants.
Didn't see that coming at all.
Sam and Rain creep to the window to peer in, Rain in her lupine form so she can try and pick out Stevie's stalker through the window. To Sam, this reminds him a lot of creeping through the woods hunting.
Okay, now get out your gun and just start shooting. You know, as you would. Hunting.
Once they get there, Rain is overwhelmed as much by the dance moves on display as the sensory onslaught that her wolfen senses grant her. That's because, rather than, picking up on the smell of her stalker's dress, according to Chris, she sees brilliantly colored patterns of energy, each body giving off its own distinctive heat signature, revealing that person's physical and emotional state.
But they're all the same color, though.
You know how wolves have thermal vision?
Yes. And also, what I love is that each body giving off its own distinctive heat signature. They're all the same color. They couldn't do what he wrote.
Meanwhile, the rest head into the gym, using Stevie to flush out her stalker because they saw it once on an episode of Magnum P.I.
Oh no. Don't just do things you saw on Magnum P.I.
Professor Xavier let them come up with a plan. I don't know.
Oh no. Oh no. Maybe Kitty needs to be here so she can be in charge of these, planless... Or someone needs to know what they're doing.
Well, their plan works like a charm.
No! Illegal.
Nearly as soon as they enter, young Peter Bristow starts flushing big time. After Rain mentally calls him out to Danny over their rapport, he's caught dead to rights because he pretty much immediately as good as admits it. Stevie approaches, calling for Peter to stop and talk, but he roughly shoves her back before bolting for the door, proclaiming that he'd sooner die.
Why?
Well, Rain's protective to a fault, and she dives through the window in pursuit. So much for undercover.
Yeah, also, this is now getting way closer to modern school violence.
The sudden appearance of a wolf on the dance floor causes a panic in the crowd.
Shockingly.
And the students and staff rush for the doors, trampling Sean among others in the commotion. She's all right, though, and gets to her feet, following the panicking crowd in the hopes of reaching Pete to possess him before he can make a getaway. She's running for all it's worth, but neither she nor Rain are fast enough to reach him before Pete gets to the Corvette, gutting it away from the curb and onto the street with little mind for anyone who might be in the way.
Oh no.
Sam's busy blasting to catch up when he's the one who spots a mother and her child crossing the street. Bristow never does. Sam immediately breaks off pursuit to come to their rescue, scooping mother and child up, one in each arm.
Well, I hope they didn't get injured by the grab, but I suppose it's better than being hit by a car.
There's one problem, though. Now he's blasting, which means he has to stop blasting, because there's a building ahead.
No, just keep going. It'll be fine. I'm sure you won't smush the people you're holding on to.
Well, he won't, because they're in his blast field, so they're safe.
Oh.
But he's going to plow right into it if he doesn't do something. He's never successfully turned before, but it's now or never. And so with every ounce of effort, he does it, managing a 90-degree turn straight up into the sky.
My guy, you probably pulled something doing that, and you look like you were taking the worst crap ever.
Of course, he's still got a problem. That's when Xavier reaches out with some pointers, instructing him to pulse his blast so he can safely touch down. It's a painful landing, but Sam couldn't care less. While the mom may have fainted, he actually did it.
And this is how he gets a lawsuit for emotional damages.
Meanwhile, Peter is still a menace to the roads, tearing through the streets of Salem Center when he loses control, skidding out on a turn into an abandoned factory. Though Pete's okay, the vet, of course, immediately bursts into flame. And while the others chase Bristow into the factory, Sunspot is the only one with the muscle to hurl the burning car away from the building before the gas tank blows. So as much as he hates it, he stays behind.
Oh boy.
Inside, the kids search for Peter. Rain can tell she's scared. She can tell a lot of things. She loves it like this, and wishes she never has to change. Danny hears all this through their rapport, but keeps mum about it.
Oh boy.
They've got bigger fish to fry, anyway.
So do we have a furry on the team? Like a proper furry?
Sure does seem that way. Just then, a bit of ceiling in the derelict factory begins to collapse. Sean tackles Danny out of the way just in time, while outside Berto works on chucking Bristow's dad's Corvette out of the building.
You know, I'm impressed that the thing stayed together as he chucks it.
He knows he has to be careful about preserving his strength without the sun around to recharge him. Still, he manages the task, chucking it away from the maintenance shack. He's busy admiring a job well done when an explosion from within blows him off his feet.
Like, genuinely though, how did that thing's rear end stay together? He just grabbed the body of it. He should have ripped off the rear bumper.
Yeah. He needed to get a hand on the frame, but maybe he did?
I doubt it, and I don't think they had enough time to get into the intricacies of how cars work.
That's when he and Charles realize the shack is full of explosives.
What the fuck? So wait, this abandoned building is full of explosives. What the fuck?
It's gonna blow before long. They've gotta get out before the whole factory goes. But Sean refuses to leave Peter to his fate. She and Danielle are busy arguing about it when Rain's scream cuts through the air. The girls rush in her direction, where they find Bristow holding a stick over an unconscious Rain.
Ew.
Confused why she's not a wolf anymore.
That's a good question.
He doesn't get to dwell on that long as karma snags his mind. Just then, the shack blows. At least, it's a nice, slow collapse. The kids have time to pull it together and get out. Sam swoops in, scooping up the unconscious Rain and making them all an exit while the girls scramble quickly behind them, Peter in tow. They find Roberto holding Sammy's blast hole open. Only once they're out does he finally release the rubble, letting it fully collapse. With everyone back in Stevie's apartment, it's time to get some answers. Peter still refuses to talk, insisting Stevie has no proof, but that's where he's wrong. With recordings of his voice, they can match him to the calls. It's only when Miss Hunter threatens to tell his parents that Pete starts sweating, begging her not to tell, terrified to the point that Xavier can't even penetrate the fog of fear clouding his mind.
Wow.
He then instructs Psyche to use her powers to get to the bottom of this. She's initially hesitant to intrude on Bristow's privacy.
I mean, does this guy deserve privacy after all that?
But she makes a bizarre turnabout on Charles, deciding that he always knows best, like she's one of the 05.
No, don't do that.
Of course, they never would have doubted under Sean. But once her spirit forms manifest, Peter's secret desire for Stevie Hunter is revealed for all to see, causing the boy to shriek with rage.
What? Okay.
Seemingly ready to attack, were Cannonball not holding him back.
That makes even less sense.
Stevie's not exactly pleased at having been terrorized over a crush, but this doesn't really answer all their questions, so Danny digs deep, revealing instead the daily fear Peter lives in of his father's beatings. The New Mutants are all horrified by the sight.
What the fuck is going on?
But not as horrified as Peter is that everyone saw. Outraged, he leaps at Moonstar, tearing his shirt away from Sammy in the process. He doesn't manage to get a hold of her. Karma snags his mind once more, but it does reveal the scarred lines crisscrossing his back, belt lashes from dear old Dad.
Oh, yes, but remember, hey Kitty, remember how your terrible story is about your parents' divorce? You're lucky you're not here.
Peter breaks down sobbing, no longer trying to fight his way free. Roberto doesn't get it, asking if his parents hate him, but Peter argues that no, they love him. He's just a bad kid.
Ew.
That's why he did all this. He thought Stevie was beautiful, and she said she liked him. Obviously intended as a mentor to a student, but she wouldn't punish him when he did bad, so he knew that meant she didn't love him. And that made him mad, made him want to get even. Stevie holds him close, and both teacher and student cry on the floor of her apartment. It's not long before X shows up on the scene. After mucking with the kid's mind to make him forget the New Mutants, because some things never change.
We still gotta wipe his brain a little.
Chuck calls emergency services to get some help for Peter. An ambulance to help with his injuries, and CPS to help ensure that there will be no more. As the ambulance pulls away, Rain worries after him, wondering what will become of the boy. Even Charles isn't really able to give her a clear answer beyond foster care and therapy.
Yeah, this is a systemic problem. He can't really fix those.
He plans to be a part of that therapy, but even therapy doesn't always take, and the cycle of child abuse can be a hard one to break. All that said and done, the professor assigns homework to the kids, an analysis of the night's events, ready by class tomorrow.
Wow. Rude.
So what's your analysis of this very special issue? How'd you like it?
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, the ending there.
I can't get away from Kitty Pryde's tragic backstory of divorce.
Yeah, it's constantly put in context, huh?
Yeah, her terribly tragic backstory of divorce. Between Magic's literally lost half her life in limbo, witnessing everyone she cares about dying.
Meanwhile, more realistic fates like Peter Bristow.
Yeah, Peter Bristow's being abused and taking it out on the one adult that was decent in his life because he has no method of handling how he feels at all. There's some real whiplash here. I'm not saying this is bad. It just complicates some of the other storytelling.
I think I'm at about a 3.5.
Sure, yeah. Unexpected, but...
How do you think CMRL felt?
2.
3.10.
3.1? 0?
Yeah, 3.10.
Huh.
Next up is Uncanny X-Men 169 from February of 1983. Written by Chris Claremont, penciled by Paul Smith, inked by Bob Wysek, colored by Bob Sharon, lettered by Tom Orzechowski and Dan Crespi, with a cover by Paul Smith and Bob Wysek. So what can I tell you about Dan Crespi?
Oh, new name.
Well, he's another one of the older folks at Marvel, as in the first time he was hired on, they were still calling themselves Timely Comics.
Oh, old-timer.
He was well loved there, bringing laughter around the offices wherever he worked. But I couldn't find a lot of sources with fun anecdotes, so for our fun fact, he's the uncle of our fellow comics professional, Nelson Yomtov. Nepotism!
It works!
Candy Southern arrives home from a rough day with the kind of perm that only the 80s could love. She calls out for Warren when she comes in, but he doesn't answer. And so she catches the elevator up to the bedroom.
Oh, right, because he lives in an absurd house.
Well, they're actually at his Manhattan penthouse. I guess.
Of course they are.
But when she arrives there, there's still no answer, only a pile of bloody feathers on the floor.
Ooh.
Candy's still taking it all in when the lights click out. She's trapped in here with someone else. She scurries for the phone to call for help, knowing the cops will take too long to get to her. Luckily, Warren's state-of-the-art phone for the early 80s has preset contacts.
Ooh, we have Xavier, we have Hank, and a bunch of other names I don't recognize. Actually, no, I don't recognize him. Does he have Steven Seagal on speed dial?
Surely not.
He has a Seagal on speed dial.
Well, it's spelled wrong.
Is Steven Seagal a reference yet?
I don't think so. I think Steven Seagal is more of a 90s creation.
Yeah. Yes, he was created in the 90s.
She uses his preset contacts to dial Professor Xavier's number.
Who is reading something called Marvel Universe.
Even though he's already in bed, Charles picks up, and Candy begins to explain her situation, including her fear for her own life, just as a hand closes on her shoulder.
Oh, well, rip then.
The hulking figure proclaims himself Sunder, here to hurt her, as Candy screams, still on the phone with Xavier.
You know, this feels like if you frame the panel differently, this would be something straight out of, like, early X-Men or Thor or whatever, but this doesn't look or feel like that, just because of the framing. Because I am Sunder, I am here to hurt you. That is some dumb shit old school villains say.
Kurt Wagner and Amanda Sefton are having a romantic night in the jacuzzi.
Oh no.
Talking lightly about settling down when Kurt gets the mental call from Professor Xavier. With his Nightcrawler still hanging out, Kurt bamps across...
It sure is.
Kurt bamps across town until he gets to Warren's apartment building, where he spots a barely conscious Warren being carted off into a subway entrance.
So Nightcrawler's not furry, right?
Yes, he is furry.
How furry?
Fuzzy, I think.
But
But that only takes care of half of their problems. As if on cue, Candy Southern gets chucked through a window, now plunging towards the ground. Luckily, Kurt's there, and he quickly scoops her up.
With his Wagner out and everything.
With his Wagner out and everything. Porting off towards Amanda's apartment with the injured woman. He douses Amanda, dropping Candy in the tub with an enormous splash because he just doesn't have time to do any better right now. And at least Sefton can care for her until he returns. Meanwhile, uptown by Central Park... Sebastian Shaw arrives at the Hellfire Club, passing into one of the many secret passageways underneath.
Welcome back, Sebastian Shaw.
Here he's been called by an emergency summons by Tessa, who you actually remember this time, right?
No.
You don't remember
No.
Tessa.
I'm sorry,
Let's casual Friday here at the Hellfire Club.
Look,
maybe you'd help remember her if she was in uniform.
It's hard to keep track of these people. They are absurd. They're like the most absurd baddies. And
you would think that would make them more memorable.
No, they're like too much. The aliens, I get the aliens. These people dress too much alike at the same time as being absolutely ridiculous.
Well, Tessa explains that around an hour ago, a terrified Emma Frost showed up, calling for Sebastian.
Ooh, boy.
She wouldn't explain what was going on, but before she could arrive, mid-sentence, she just collapsed into this catatonic state. Tessa is troubled at what it would take to overcome the White Queen's formidable defenses, and Shaw can't help but agree. He thinks Xavier could be capable of the deed, but not actually willing to just attack her like that. And so the pair are left without answers, knowing that this is a display of power by some unseen attacker just waiting to attack again.
Oh, so someone else out there is attacking them. That's fun.
Yep, someone else just picked off Emma Frost.
That's terrifying, actually.
With all that done, the X-Men gather in Amanda's apartment to hear Candy's traumatic tale. Not that there's all that much tale to tell. She didn't really see much of Sunder, and wasn't around for Angel's kidnapping.
Hey, Kitty? What are you wearing?
Remember, that's what she was wearing, as Ariel.
How many different outfits does she have?
She must have graduated into this one, I guess.
Yeah.
She wasn't supposed to have her own outfit. This is new.
Yeah, I could have sworn she was wearing her old outfit the last time.
She's graduated into an outfit, I guess. Or Charles just wasn't able to stop her this time.
Which would not be unheard of.
It's hardly the first time she's slipped out in her own outfit.
That's true.
As they all sip warm beverages, perhaps Kurt could really use one. It seems the winter chill has really done a number on him, as he's sneezing the night away. He'd love to spend the night in bed, but with Logan and Scott both traveling, it seems like a night on the bench just isn't in the cards for him. Though Amanda promises a magic potion to fix him right up.
Oh boy.
Speaking of which, she offers her assistance, but Storm turns it down, preferring she stay to watch over Candy. Just in case. Over their psychic connection, Ororo asks the professor if she might not tag Wolfsbane in to help them track Warren down. She's really feeling Logan's absence right now, and they could definitely use a tracker. But Chuck won't hear it. The New Mutants do not go on missions. Period. End of story.
I wonder how long that's gonna stick.
Kit Kat decides that Lockheed is also to stay behind and help Amanda keep Candy safe.
Huh.
He doesn't seem all that pleased about it, but by the time he's placed in Amanda's arms, he's purring away like a fat and contented cat.
And here I thought Lockheed was gonna be the one doing the stalking, but sure.
So like the producer at dinner time when she revs up her diesel.
Mm-hmm.
The X-Men eventually reach the subway station Kurt saw Angel hauled off into, with the note that when he returned, he saw no sign of Warren, just a shitload of emergency services tending to a toll booth worker who'd taken ill. He attributes it to Angel's attackers, even while noting that it could be nothing, but what's the likelihood? As they descend, they begin losing psychic reception with Professor X.
I did not know that didn't work in a tunnel. Wait, hey, Professor, are you a cell phone? Is that how this actually works?
He's working on the same rules as, 5G.
Yeah. You go in a tunnel and... Bloop.
It's only bound to get worse as they leave the platform and head down into the tracks. At the sound of an approaching train, the X-Men flatten themselves against the wall. Ororo very suddenly conscious of the tightness of the space, though she tries to deny the effect her claustrophobia is having on her. After the train passes, they continue on, following their mini Cerebro unit, until it seems to lead them smack dab into a wall. Kit Kat seldom met a wall she couldn't crack, so after a "Mom, don't call me that" about her code name, she peeks through, finding that the wall is actually a door. Well, most walls are doors for her, but you know.
Yeah.
Carefully, the group begin winding their way down the steep, crusty stairs, discussing the lost souls that choose to live in such conditions. Ororo with no small bitterness in her voice. They've just about reached a landing when a group ambushes them, quite literally jumping the X-Men from the top of the stairs.
Yeah, they sure are.
Quickly, things turn into an all-out brawl between the homeless and the X-Men.
Oh boy.
But while Storm, Colossus, and Nightcrawler are busy with the fight, Ororo bids Kit Kat to go head off and figure out what's going on here. From the shadows, a group of 4 mutants watch the fight, for now just studying their foes, with the goal of drawing them further into what they call the alley, where they'll have the advantage, and then it'll be game over for the beautiful people.
It's a trap.
As Kitty pops out behind them, she recognizes Sunder from Candy's description, but she's not the only one doing some recognizing. In turn, smelled. And the leader of the gang calls on one of their number, Plague, to get her ass!
Ooh.
Though pride turns intangible, she feels a strange tingling sensation as Plague's hand passes through her arm.
Well, I don't like the sound of that name.
But with Sunder coming to try and bring the wall down on her, she has other concerns. The leader, Cal, is none too impressed with Sunder right now. The kid walks through walls, numbnuts. Not that she's really worried. Once the girl rematerializes, any of Plague's molecules that actually stick will kill her dead.
Ooh.
Meanwhile, the fight wraps up with the gang grabbing their injured and beating a hasty retreat, leaving the X-Men no one to question. A test of strength, then. They also realize they have no idea where Kitty is and no way to follow her.
That's bad.
The mini Cerebro is set to Angel, and Piotr is not happy about this situation at all.
Yeah, I guess, come to think of it, everyone here is probably more invested in Kitty than Angel. And so, not knowing where Kitty is more important than not knowing where Angel is. Like, they're just hell, they're doing Scott a solid, but Kitty being missing, way more important.
Piotr is very frustrated at Storm's seeming lack of care, but she's got to look out for everyone right now, not just Kitty.
Remember, she's the leader. She's definitely the leader of the team.
And there's no one here to question that now.
Yes.
She's in charge, goddammit. And she counters that she has no other options. She can't reach the professor, and even if she could, there are no backups. Besides, what are they going to do? Head up to talk to him and just leave Sprite and Angel down here alone?
Yes, they're going to leave everyone to their devices, and what happens, happens.
The X-Men move along, but Kitty does eventually return back to the scene of the fight, feeling quite ill. After a moment dizzy on her feet, she collapses face first into the water. It's a lucky thing that Caliban is there to pull her out, recognizing her illness through his mutant power. He bends low to pick her up, carrying her off down the tunnel, cradled in his arms.
We've met Caliban before.
Yes, we have. Intending to nurse her back to health in the hopes that she'll love him and stay happily ever after with him. Remember, we met him.
Oh, no.
She's gonna be his friend forever and ever and ever and ever.
That's,
We remember that?
I don't exactly remember him clearly, but I don't like the sound of that. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Meanwhile, the X-Men emerge into a massive tunnel stretching further than the eye can see. Though at first the lights are just bright enough for them to note that everything is in good repair, moments later they kick up to blinding intensity, forcing the heroes to squint against them.
So, like, this is still a subway tunnel of some kind. Because or at least it's some kind of rail tunnel. But it's like a tech rail tunnel.
We'll get into what it is.
Okay.
Storm calls out that they come in peace, searching for a friend. But the woman who rolls up on a rail car knows exactly who they seek.
Oh, no.
The Angel. They're none too happy to see him in his present state, pinned up by his wings atop the car. The woman speaks again, jerking the unconscious Warren's head up by the hair as she introduces herself as Callisto, and her kin as the Morlocks, explaining, "Every princess must have a prince, and for me, who more fitting than the most beautiful man in the world?" That's right, Angel got the fantasy princess treatment.
And he's, okay, So, hey, at X-Men, we're equal opportunity about who we treat as eye candy and, tie to things.
I love it. Like I said, he got the fantasy princess treatment.
Yeah. Ororo is not tied to a thing being objectified by someone. No, it's Angel.
The most beautiful man in the world.
Yes.
Colossus doesn't get it. All this for love?
No!
But after an encounter with a creep in her adolescence, Storm gets it all too well. It's not love, it's lust. Cal then draws a knife, leaning in close to Warren to clip his pin feathers so he'll never fly again.
Oof.
Just in time, Storm realizes what's happening, and it's Nightcrawler who makes the bamf that sets off the whole commotion, porting up to knock the blade from her hands. At Callisto's order, the Morlocks surge forward to attack the X-Men in a wave of humanity, hurling Nightcrawler forward. Ororo takes to the air to try to force them back with some lightning bolts, but because no one has ever learned not to telegraph their moves aloud, Callisto hears her and nails her with their slingshot, knocking her in the head.
I'm shocked this is the first time this has happened.
Meanwhile, Piotr is doing his best to fight the Morlocks without hurting them, but that's like fighting with one massive hand tied behind his back.
Hey Piotr, hurt them.
And eventually, even the Russian giant is overwhelmed by the dog pile. While elsewhere in the tunnels, a gravely ill Kitty Pryde awakens from her slumber in a bed illuminated by a single bare light bulb, feeling like death warmed over.
Ugh.
Or perhaps chilled. The girl can't seem to get warm for the life of her, despite the blankets piled atop her.
She's also less dressed than she was.
Yes, she's been redressed in a nightgown. Her best attempts to get out of bed have just lead to puking over the edge. She is in a bad state.
Oh dear.
She gives it another go, and this time manages for just a moment. Just as Caliban comes into the room, though, the girl swoons. Perfect time for him to catch her. But he realizes that things aren't going well. His best attempts to cure Kit Kat have amounted to nothing, and now there's only one thing he can do. Go back to the Morlocks and make Plague heal his beloved Kitty Pryde.
Can he do that?
We shall see. How do you like that?
A bunch of stuff came out of nowhere. It's pretty wild. And Caliban is being incredibly creepy.
Caliban's always a little creepy.
That's fair. Not bad, though. I appreciate that we're objectifying a man. That we are giving him the treatment.
I've always found it really funny.
We haven't strewn up Ororo or Kitty or... well, we don't exactly have Jean right now.
No Jean's available, sorry.
But no, we have an angel, and he's the most beautiful man in the world.
I mean, there are some things to be said about that, maybe, but hey.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, but 3.5.
Sure, I'll go with that. 3.5. What do you think Ciamaro thought?
Somewhere between 3 and 3.5.
3.85, actually.
They really liked it.
Next up is Uncanny X-Men 170 from March of 1983, written by Chris Claremont, penciled by Paul Smith, inked by Bob Wysek, colored by Paul Beckton and Janine Casey, and lettered by Tom Warzachowski, with a cover by Paul Smith and Bob Wysek.
That is a cover.
Together on their first date, Madeline Pryor and Scott Summers danced the night away across the living room of a winter chalet at the bottom of a ski hill.
Yeah, he really did ditch his boss.
Are you gonna come back, Scott? Yeah, I think so.
Never mind.
They've spent the past few weeks working for Grandma and Grandpa Summers' airline together, and the time spent together has led to this. Though the music stops, for a time the couple continues swaying to their own internal rhythm.
Scott, you went from bad choice to worst possible choice.
He doesn't know that.
No, I mean, if I ran into a literal body double for a dead girlfriend, I would be suspicious, not just tossing away whatever romantic entanglement I already had and just practically...
You know, that's fair.
Like, with his life, I'd be suspicious.
It's a good point. It's a good point, Iverson doll.
We met... Remember, Chuck is a clone. Chuck is a clone now. Who's to say that someone didn't clone...
Well, maybe that's what he's hoping for. Someone cloned my girlfriend.
That's not good. That's bad. That's actually bad. If someone cloned your girlfriend and then put her in the world, why is she in the world, Scott? What's she here for?
There are reasons behind this, Scott.
This is a trap.
It's a trap!
Specifically set for you. And you're a fly in the trap. It's clamping down already. Leeching your life away.
Maddie finally breaks away to go change the tape, and each compliments the other for their dancing. Though Scott doesn't exactly think that's accurate, but would you look at the time? He doesn't get how they haven't been kicked out yet.
Because this is a trap for him, and whoever's letting this happen is fine with this.
But Madeline explains the situation. She's got pull with the owner after rescuing his son from a plane crash the year before.
Of course.
He'd even let them stay in his very best suite
Of
as
course.
long as Maddie asked.
Of course.
And Scott is, at the very least, tempted. Maybe it's that cold splash of water in the face. He realizes again that this is a bad idea.
Okay, good, yes. But you're not going to act on that, are you?
Nope. But at the same time, he doesn't care. Still, he walks off and goes funnily silent, lost in thought, and that draws Madeline's attention. She finally manages to call his attention back, asking him to allow her to help. But then he sees her silhouetted against the fire.
Oh man, that's like, yeah,
And it is game over for him. You were talking about a trap set? Well, he just stepped in it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Maddie crosses the room to his side, apologizing for being so forward, thinking that's what threw the mood off. But she doesn't get it, and can't. Not unless Scott does what he does next. Clears it up for her.
That's probably a mistake.
He explains how his ex-fiancée passed away, as he pulls a picture of the woman out of his wallet. The likeness stuns Madeline and breaks her heart. She needs time to think this over.
Shocking.
And so she steps back to the fire, while Scott crosses the room to the window. It's not that far a distance, but at this moment, it's more of a chasm. Or so it seems. Scott feels just terrible. While it may have been the right and smart thing to do, to handle this right now, he really likes this girl, and he doesn't want to let her go.
Scott!
He turns to try to speak with her again, only to find her right there, having done her thinking already. She'd like to give things another go, starting with another dance.
Oh no.
Back beneath the bustling streets of New York City, the X-Men sit bound in captive audience for Warren's side of the family at his wedding to Callisto, head of the Morlocks.
I love me these shotgun oh my god, that outfit. We really are just okay.
Cal caresses the still unconscious Warren's face, dressed up in his finest bondage diaper for the special event.
I mean...
Callisto is also in her best 80s punk wedding finery. But before we even get to that part, Storm objects, earning her a hefty yank to the hair by Sunder, causing her to scream. For the other X-Men, that's quite enough of that. And by that, I mean Callisto in general.
Yeah.
And with very little trouble, they free themselves of their bonds.
I mean, they just put rope around Colossus like that would stop him.
Colossus snaps his with a simple flex of his mighty musculature, and Nightcrawler just bamps free.
I don't think this was thought out that much.
The boys come out of the gate swinging. Kurt bamps up once more to the train car to grab Callisto, while Piotr takes a crack at Sunder, pitting his strength against the somehow larger mutant.
Hey, there's always a bigger fish. Doesn't mean it's stronger, but they can be bigger.
They're doing all right, but Storm's got to get loose if they want to even up the odds any instead of getting their shit kicked in again.
Yeah, because that could still happen again.
So she summons up a lightning bolt, sending the crowd scurrying back while she frees her hands. Meanwhile, Kurt ports around the alley, Cal still in tow.
Ooh. Oh, I just noticed what they did with the panel and Banff. That's really neat.
He's really struggling against the strain, but Callisto, totally unused to the sensation, is rendered helpless. Moments later, the pair reappear with Callisto hefted up over top Crawler's head, and he threatens her life should they not be allowed to leave in peace. It's enough to momentarily stop the slugfest, and Ororo steps up to take charge, pressing the bluff. That's when a gnarled hand reaches up from behind Storm, grabbing her around the wrist.
Oh no.
It's Plague, and as Ororo faints, the situation is now at a standoff. They either spare Cal's life and give up the fight, or she'll touch Storm a second time and she dies. Kurt never really intended to kill Callisto in the first place, so this is a no-brainer for him. Likewise, Piotr surrenders, and the Morlocks get to work fashioning a better way to contain the X-Men. For Colossus, a hyper-strong polymer cable that they just fucking have for some reason.
Why didn't they use that earlier?
For Nightcrawler, the threats hanging over his friends' lives are just going to have to be enough.
That's fair.
What Kurt doesn't get is the Morlocks' whole deal. And so, while they bind the X-Men once more, Callisto begins to explain. They're all mutants, gathered here together to escape a world that hates and fears them. One day, after Cal found this secret abandoned Cold War bomb shelter, she began gathering these lost souls with the help of Caliban. Speaking of which, let's turn to him. I thought he was off trying to find the Morlocks, but for now he's still at Kit Kat's side, attempting to reassure the youth that she won't die.
But it sure seems like she's gonna.
Kitty pleads for his help, but Caliban's concern is that after she's better, she'll leave him. She promises otherwise, but Caliban is still hesitant. And so the feverish girl grabs his sleeve, promising to hate him for the rest of her life, however short it may be.
Ugh.
The thought of defying Callisto brings terror into his heart. But at the same time, the mutant knows that without his help, the X-Men will not fare well. That's when he turns back to Kitty, seeing her collapsed on the ground.
Rip.
Else when, 1783 to be specific,
Okay.
horses gallop across the English countryside, following barking and braying hunting dogs as they near their quarry, a confused, tattered, and torn Mystique as she flees through the countryside.
I don't think she's supposed to be in 1783.
You don't know how old she is.
That's true, but I didn't think not aging was part of her deal.
She actually is quite old.
Okay, I didn't know that.
She doesn't understand what the hell is happening to her. Up until moments ago, she was resting peacefully in bed. Now she's in a fight for her life. Sprinting along, the shapeshifter soon learns the folly of supervillainy in high heels. She tumbles ass over tea kettle into the brook, her ankle broken, and then the dogs catch up, snapping and biting at her.
Ooh.
A few moments later, their masters, Sir Jason and Lady Jean Grey, arrive.
Oh boy.
Back at their favorite pastime, hunting the most dangerous game. Jason pulls the dogs off Misty, but it's only so he can grab her by the hair, exposing her throat for the cutting. Lady Jean shows no hesitation, drawing the blade across Mystique's neck.
Yikes.
Lucky for her, when you die in the dream, you don't die in real life.
You know what? That's true.
And she sits bolt upright in bed, crying out in fear. She still doesn't get it. Neither figure from her dream should be able to get at her. Jeannie's dead, and Mastermind still has a case of brain soup going on.
Oh yeah. How? What even? How?
At the further realization that her ankle is somehow still hurts,
Ugh.
she limps downstairs, only to find Irene waiting, ready with a pot of coffee. Benefits of marrying a precog. But Destiny doesn't have any better idea than Mystique of the source of this dream, though she does agree that it's sus.
Yeah.
Briefly, they consider Charles Xavier as well, before deciding, I think wrongly, that this is too powerful for him to pull off.
Well, no, it's just not his style.
Right, exactly. Hard disagree.
This isn't... He could have done it, but this is not his style at all.
He may not be able to actually injure her ankle, but you know what he could do? Make her think it hurts.
I mean, he's making himself think it hurts.
Anyway, Irene suddenly panics, sensing a danger to Rogue. The women dash upstairs, fretting over their adoptive daughter, even as Irene knows it's too late.
Fucking rip.
Mystique mourns over her failures as her parent, knowing how surly Rogue came home after her last throwdown with Dazzler, which is definitely an even playing ground.
Oh, man.
But by the time they get there, Rogue is already gone, having left no signs in her wake. Yet again, Destiny's ability to sense why is being somehow jammed, leaving the women helpless as their girl catches the next bus out of town. Down in the alley, Callisto taunts the now rebound X-Men, setting Mask on Storm to put a smile on her face.
Ooh.
The Morlock separates himself from the crowd to shove his mitts in Storm's sweaty face, reshaping it like clay.
Don't like that.
A little bit of mild body horror. At least until Kurt cries out for him to knock it the hell off, defending Ororo's human dignity, at which point he allows it to return to normal. Mask doesn't take well to this, drawing back his hood to reveal his disfigured face.
My guy, there are professionals who can help you with this.
Like Donald Blake.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what the fuck is that?!
You're right, that's what would happen. You're actually uglier than Doctor Doom. How did that happen?
Cruelly, the only face his powers don't allow him to reshape is his own. He then reaches out, threatening to turn his powers on Kurt now, at least until Callisto calls him off, explaining that she likes Kurt's bravery, and by his appearance, he'd fit in well amongst the Morlocks if he wanted to stay.
She's not wrong, though.
You know, though, because she's made such a pleasant sales pitch so far.
Yeah, that's the only problem.
But he's not interested, still determined to earn his due respect up on the surface. Not to mention how much he loves his friends. Speaking of, here comes Caliban, Kitty gathered up limply in his arms.
Gang's all here.
So much for that uber-strong cable.
They are so bad at securing these guys.
The moment he sees dear Kitty in her current state, Colossus immediately flexes out of his chains again, rushing along with Kurt to her side. Kitty needs the kind of medical help they can muster up at the mansion ASAP, but Callisto refuses, snarling that if the brat dies, she dies.
Then I think then Colossus would find he does have violence in his heart.
Caliban then, yeah, I think we would find that if she dies, you dies.
Yeah.
Caliban then speaks up hopelessly with their only possibility. If they can defeat Callisto in trial by combat, she can be replaced as head of the Morlocks.
So that's how your society works, huh?
Yup.
Is trial by combat codified by anything? What is your government?
Well, I think Cal came up as the head of the Morlocks, so it's just...
Whatever she says.
Yup. So maybe this has come up before. Someone has tried to take leadership from her, and apparently it has not gone well.
Fair.
Kurt agrees, stepping forward as Kitty's champion. It's a duel to the death, though, and as soon as she hears this, a feverish Storm steps up. Or stays exactly where she is.
I mean, she is volunteering.
Insisting on challenging Callisto herself, even in spite of the illness currently ravaging her body. Cal agrees, though she oh so generously offers Kurt his own try after she finishes killing his friend.
Yeah, that's not gonna go the way you think.
There's just one more rule to this fight. No powers. At least for Storm. Or Kit Kat dies.
Oh, really?
Callisto then chucks a knife at her. Visibly shaken when Ororo grabs the knife from midair, whirling it about in a threatening gesture.
You picked the wrong X-Men to give a knife to.
Unfortunately, as we and Kurt both know, Ororo's sworn not to kill, so a duel to the death is kind of an issue.
Yeah, but she's pretty good in a pinch. And how far do you think she'd go to save Kitty's life?
It is Kitty.
Yeah, I think all three of them would kill to save her if it came down to it.
For a time, the women just circle each other like wolves. Cal, it is mentioned, has enhanced physical abilities, so robbing Storm of her powers is kind of double unfair.
Oh, yeah.
But they're playing by Callisto's rules here, so who is shocked?
Of course. This is completely unfair.
Cal draws first blood, lunging in to swipe at Storm's cheek and painfully slicing it open. Ororo fruitlessly dives in for a slice of her own when Callisto gets her again, slashing the feverish X-Men across the arm this time. But Ororo's not out of the fight just yet. She whips her cape forward, wrapping it around the Morlock leader's knife arm. Taking advantage of the moment, Storm jerks Cal's arm up over her head, lunging forward to stab her in the chest.
Yeah, I think the other X-Men underestimated Storm's willingness to stab a bitch.
Callisto wavers on her feet for just a moment before collapsing to the ground. Ororo, the clear victor, just walks away.
Wow. Holy crap.
I think we've decided that Storm is now the leader of the X-Men.
Yeah. Scott would not do this. Scott would waver. Unless it was for Jean, Scott would waver.
See, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that she has finally stepped into the role. She is put behind all of this. Before it was the individuality of her, this is what I am, this is my own personal vow to life, my own personal needs, my own personal wants, sort of putting that behind her, and instead, this is the needs of the team, the needs of everyone over the needs of myself, is more what I was saying.
I also still think Scott would not have done this.
She then steps up to the rail car to free Warren, cradling him to her chest in a way that seems painful.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still out cold, so fuck it. As the new leader of the Morlocks, she then offers up space at the school, but none of them take her up on the offer, choosing to remain in the alley. As they begin to head out, Kurt reveals that Cal is actually still alive, recovering under the ministrations of one of the Morlock healers after having been stabbed straight in the heart.
Wow.
Come dawn in Alaska, Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor wake with a kiss, hungry and mildly disheveled after a night lying on the couch.
Uh-huh.
Maddie knows what would start the day off right. Some victuals. So she guesses Scott's breakfast order correctly, then squints into the morning sun. It's a bit bright, so she playfully reaches out to grab Scott's glasses to shield her eyes. And he immediately, of course, wigs out, smacking her arm away.
Yeah, he doesn't want to introduce her to the punch dimension.
We know why he's flipping, but Maddie's pretty outraged by his reaction, and she demands an answer. Surely his eyes can't be that sensitive.
They're not.
Scott is hesitant to explain more. This is usually where things get pretty hairy. He decides, though, that it's better to just show her rather than try to explain. He pulls a quarter out of his pocket and flips it up into the air. Then in a flash, he whips his shades off, snapping off a pinpoint shot dead through the center of the coin. Rather than afraid, Madeline is impressed.
Uh-huh.
But Summers then explains that she shouldn't be, because he can't control his optic blasts. A fact that just gains him sympathy. She's immediately on his wavelength, understanding his lifelong fear of losing control. She then points out that what he did by showing her was risky. But Scott couldn't bring himself to lie. Not to her. He offers to leave, but Maddie doesn't want him to, and instead they just hold one another in the early morning light. How'd y'all like that? Or how'd you like that?
Well, Scott has fallen into the trap. I don't know what the trap is, but this is a trap.
It's a trap!
It's a trap! Ororo now leads an underground civilization of mutants. And congrats on stabbing a woman in the heart without any care whether she lives or dies. Good on ya. Because the team's going to need a leader now that Scott is doing whatever. I feel like this is another one of Claremont's trains.
Maddie and Scott? Or the Morlocks?
Maddie and Scott.
Maddie and Scott is a train of sorts. We're on a train.
Are we riding multiple trains simultaneously? Because
the Morlocks, we'll also hear more from the Morlocks.
Because
so we've
come
got
to
multiple
think of it,
things going on here.
We never actually got into what the fuck was up with Emma Frost?
Or Mystique.
We've also got Rogue leaving.
Yeah, like there's so much happening.
There's a lot going on in this one.
Yeah. 3.75.
I'm at a 4. I enjoyed it. What do you think Sam Moreau thought?
4?
4.29.
Damn.
You really liked it.
Yeah.
So that's going to be it for us this week. We gotta go through our stuff real quick here, so let's see. Like, subscribe, hit the bell button. Don't forget to comment down below what you thought of Ororo's...
Stabbing a woman in the chest.
Yeah, Ororo's stabbing a bitch.
She did do that.
Do you think Scott would have done it?
I don't think Scott has it in him.
I don't know.
Scott doesn't... Look, Ororo has has a restrained anger about her. That she is holding it back most of the time. And that control defines her. Scott is sad. I don't think Scott has the raw anger to stab someone like that. I think he'd go for the glancing blow.
Yeah, I think he'd probably try and find some other way out of this situation.
Yeah. He always wants a peaceful solution to things. The more we go, the more he wants the peaceful solution, to the point where even Professor Xavier is like, the peaceful solution is not an option. No, Professor, it is an option. And then his speech turns Professor back to his original cause. It's impressive, but Ororo was put in a stab or die situation, and turns out she's pretty good with a knife. And I'm guessing it's not the first time she's stabbed someone with a knife.
I like all of this analysis. Put on your own analysis down in the comments down below. We'd love to hear it.
I want to hear what you think of my thoughts.
If you have anything else to say, you can throw us an email at comicsplaining@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media. We're on Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook. Those are mostly the places you can find us. Theoretically, we're other places, but we don't really fuck around too much on them.
Nah.
So those are the easiest places to find us. And aside from that, we're going to be back with you next time, and we look forward to talking to you then. Bye!
Bye!